Can you guys notice that I haven't slept in 3 days? I hope not. So this week's episode of Emma's Awful Life is going to be story time. And this story time is about how a power cut turned into a near-death experience, and it took me 2 days to notice that I was in intense danger, like really serious danger. I could have died. Now you're probably thinking, whoa, you had no power for 2 days and you didn't think to call someone? Look, okay, I am not experienced with this sort of stuff. Okay, before I start getting angry, I'm just going to tell you the story and just cry, because it was the worst 3 days of my life. It all started when I went back home. So I went back home for a few weeks because of some family issues, and I was pumped. Where I am, the internet isn't very good, so I couldn't watch any Netflix. So when I got home, I was like, as soon as I get through that front door, I'm gonna sit my ass down on the couch and catch up on RuPaul's Drag Race. Miss Vanjie. The first 5 days were okay. I mostly just locked myself in a room and tried to avoid all my mum's friends as they kept on coming into our house and talking about random old lady stuff that I didn't understand. And then on Thursday, my mum comes up to me and says, Emma, me and Dad are going back home, which is the South Island, that's where we grew up, to take your granddad to this weird war exhibit, and we won't be back until Monday. Now, this wasn't really new to me. I don't live there anymore, and when I came back last time, Mum and Dad always went out to weird adult stuff, and I just chilled and stayed in my room. So I wasn't worried. I had Wi-Fi, I had a microwave. I would be fine. Don't worry about me, I was fine. I spoke too soon. I wake up the next morning in a really good mood. Like, the best mood I've had in like 7 years. I finally have the house to myself. I can pig out on chips. I can sing Bend the Boys on repeat as loud as I can, and no one will judge me. I can watch Netflix on the main TV because Dad isn't in the lounge watching his stupid fishing shows. So I sit on the couch and start catching up on RuPaul's Drag Race. While watching it, I was scrolling through Tumblr, and then as I was scrolling through, I realised that some of the GIFs and images on Tumblr weren't loading. Thinking that it's just something weird, I look back up at the TV and realise that Netflix wasn't loading either. So I go back to my phone, look at the top, and the Wi-Fi bar is gone. But you see, my family home is way out in the country. It's next to mountains and this weird waterfall shit. We have cows everywhere, paddocks. So losing Wi-Fi for a few minutes and so isn't really that rare. I mean, we live in the middle of nowhere. So I go into the settings on my phone to reconnect my phone to our home Wi-Fi, and our home Wi-Fi name doesn't even turn up. And then all of a sudden, all the hums from the heat pump, the microwave, the fridge, the TV, it all goes quiet. The power went out. But because we live by the mountains, there was this massive twister the night before, and it rained like really hard. So in my head I was just like, the power poles probably just got wet or something along those lines. The power will be back soon, right? Right? 3 hours pass and I'm starting to lose my shit. Me being a massive introvert, I rely on keeping myself company by using other things. I didn't bring any books with me from here, so I had nothing to read, I had no Wi-Fi, I had no data, so I was literally sitting on the couch, looking out the window, regretting all my life decisions of coming back home. So I just decided to go downstairs and clean my room. As I go down the stairs, I feel this heat coming onto my head, and I look up, and the vent that is above my head that is connected to the heat pump upstairs is working, which is really strange because we're in the middle of a power cut. I go into my room, I try the light switch, no light, but then I go into my sister's room next to me and I try her light switch and it works, and I'm very confused. So I go into the wash house and I find out that our washing machine has no power and neither does our freezer, but the lights in the wash house are working and it confuses me even more. So I go back upstairs and I try all the lights upstairs. none of the lights are working. I find out later on that the only things that are working upstairs is the microwave, the top bit of the stove, but not the oven, and one power socket which is in the living room, and luckily the tiny TV in the living room as well. Now this obviously is new to me, so I text my mum and tell her, "Mum, half of the house is working and half of the house is not working." So she calls our neighbour from where she is, and they turn up and they have a look at something in our house that is called a fuse box. Don't know what that is, but I find out that it's something with lots of switches on it. And he tells me that nothing he notices is wrong. And while I was there and he was being a man and just looking at something, examining it, I smell something off. It's like a cross between smoke and burning. Oh, that's just smoke. Why did I say that? I just smell smoke. But we live in the country, so fires and like bonfires happen all the time. So I push it back to the side of my head and just think someone's burning a tree that just fell down, or someone's cooking steak outside, and I just ignore it. My neighbour tells me it might have something to do with a power pole that is outside our house, so he leaves giving me that information, and I text Mum and she tells me that if the power is still not the same by the next day, we will take it further. So as it starts to get dark, and me being terrified of the dark, I go into my sister's room, find a tiny bedside lamp, plug it into the one working socket upstairs, and that is my light for the rest of the night. And I just watch some random show on the one TV that is working. So I wake up the next morning and the power is still the same. Nothing really is working upstairs and only certain things downstairs. So I text Mum and she calls the electrician for me, as I have an intense fear of talking to people on the phone. Like, I don't like doing it at all. Not my cup of tea at all. But then my dad gets on the phone and comes the horrible bit that I hated the most. As I said a million times in this video, we live on a farm. If you are a Kiwi kid who have parents that are farmers, you get a lot of home kill, which is meat, as most of our next door neighbours are beef farmers. In our house, we have 3 freezers. The 2 downstairs, which are mostly full of meat, and of course the one upstairs, which is really small and is connected to our fridge. So basically my dad tells me on the phone that I need to transfer all the meat from the downstairs washhouse freezer into the freezer in the garage, or into the freezer upstairs. Basically into any freezer that is working, so none of our meat go off. I spend at least an hour transferring frozen mince and putting it in a washing basket and carrying it all over the house, trying to fit it in a freezer that is working. The smell was horrible. Finally, the electrician turns up and I had to interact with him, which is also one of my biggest fears. And he takes me around the back of the house outside and opens this thing which he calls the meter board. Again, don't know what that is. As he opens it up, the smell that I smelt the day before hits my face and he gasps at the sight before him. Our whole meter board is black and is smoking, like majorly smoking. He looks at me and says, "Did you know that your meter board exploded?" No, I didn't know. I've been inside all day. Do I look like someone that knows what a meter board is? No. Then he continues to tell me that the meter board actually caught fire and the meter board was on fire for quite a long time, and that he is surprised that we even have power at all. I'm speechless, and then he tells me, "Have you been using any of your sockets in your house?" And I tell him, "Yes, only one of our sockets is working, so I've been using it to charge my phone." Then he tells me that that socket could have electrocuted me and killed me. Whatever that meter board does, it obviously does something pretty important, because it's blown up, and the cause of it blowing up seemed to put me in very bad danger. He tells me that he needs to turn off our power immediately, because I could have been electrocuted at any time using anything that is still going. I could have been electrocuted while opening the fridge. I could have been electrocuted while watching the TV, and I'm just standing there in my pajamas looking at this man and thinking, shit. So he leaves and he turns all our power off. So now nothing is working in our house. And he tells me that I need to call another electrician and say that our meter board is broken. So he was no help. And as he left in his weird ass van, I text Mum, and later on a man appears and his name is Graham. Now Graham was an electrician that was friends with my dad. My dad knows heaps of weird people. So this random man turns up in a ute with a farm dog on the back going ballistic. He knocks on my door, just walks in with his gumboots on and goes through our back door to look at our meter board. Again, he tells me that it's exploded. I know that, Graham. The man showed me and told me that I could have died. Thanks for reminding me of that again. And then I ask him, can you fix it? Then he goes, yeah, I could, but I have a rugby game to go to. Men, like seriously, I have had no power for over 24 hours. There was a small fire outside my house, and you're more interested in a rugby game? What? So he leaves with his dog and his ute, and I text Mum and tell her that Graham refused to fix anything. And I think, shit, I'm literally going to die. I've had nothing to eat. The only things that I can cook is the microwavable stuff, and I don't have a microwave anymore. So what am I going to do? Then I hear this random noise and I look out the veranda window, and our other neighbour, who owns a goat farm, is coming up my driveway on his dirt bike. He knocks on my door, I open up the door, and he tells me that he's heard that I'm having some electrical issues. And I'm like, yeah, I am. I'm having some very, very, very big electrical issues. Then he starts talking to me and I'm like, dude, I don't even know what pie is anymore, okay? Like, stop trying to get your man language in my head when I've literally haven't eaten in 16 hours, okay? Then he gets on his phone and is taking this call. Guess who he called? Graham! So again, Graham comes up our driveway with his ute and his dog, who is going crazy and really freaking Larry and Travis out. And Graham and him just start having a manly chat in the middle of my driveway. And I'm starting to get a little bit impatient. 3 men that day have told me the exact same thing, that my meter board has exploded and that I have no power. I'm aware of that, okay? You don't need to keep on telling me this. All I need is power right now, and you're not helping. Finally, after 3 hours of manly chatter, another van turns up. So now I have a ute, a dirt bike, and a van in my driveway, and a man hops out. He doesn't say anything to me, and he just goes to the back of my house and starts working on the meter board. Graham and my neighbour leave, so now I'm stuck by myself with this random van in my driveway and a man that hasn't talked to me yet working on the side of my house. 2 more hours pass. It's probably, what time is it then? Probably 5 o'clock at night, and the van leaves. And luckily, before the van leaves, I finally see the man face to face, and he tells me that I need to call the first guy that came to visit me this morning and that turned our whole power off. After all the calls I made and all the things that I did, it was probably around 7 o'clock at night before I had power again. So I text Mum and tell her everything's okay, and then I sit down on the couch and just regret ever coming home. So there we go. That's the story of how a power cut went wrong, and it took me 2 days to realise that I was in intense danger. If you got to this part, congratulations. I hope you enjoyed the story, and if you have a similar bad experience like this, leave it in the comments. I don't want to be alone. I'm sorry that I didn't do a video last week. As you can see, this happened, and if I get to edit it on time, you'll see it on YouTube. So long, farewell, I fair to say adieu. What are they called? Electric man? Electrician? Electrician man? Oh, friggin' hell.